facing the region. Driving forces like increased population, food demand, and climate change are pushing this challenge to its boundaries and is expected to grow with time. This is forcing more countries into more expensive water sources such as desalination to augment the limited freshwater supplies. This will lead to a heavy economic, environmental, and social burden. Water scarcity within Egypt, who's hosting this event, is a key challenge for the growing population. Ensuring sustainable water resource management is a matter of high priority to Egypt. That's why in Egypt Vision 2030, it states that the environment is integrated in all economic sectors to preserve natural resources and support their efficient use and investment while ensuring next generation rights a clean, safe, and healthy environment, leading to the diversified production resources and economic activities, supporting competitiveness, providing new jobs, eliminating poverty, and achieving social justice. Integrated resource plans and management is the key to overcome the water challenge in our region. This challenge is being compounded by its multiple nexuses with the various development sectors. It's important to address the various linkages of the water sector with other sectors like energy, food, health, and economic development as a whole, and act beyond the boundaries of each sector. And I would like to highlight one of the activities of the ASRT. It's called Water Crisis Towards More Crop Per Drop. And this is an internal call in the ASRT, where the areas is development and utilization of water, conservation, development and utilization of precision and smart agriculture, utilization of satellite observation to present a monitoring and real-time processing solutions, strategies for balancing water security, grants for strategic and foresighting studies, establishing online Africa Science Dialogue, water international conferences and publication, and this will be integrated in Egypt and then to be passed to other countries and to be international. Also, the blue economy paradigm is a neutral next step in the overall conceptualization and realization of sustainable human development. We always see what PRIMA and Water JPI and all the local funding are doing, and this is very important for us. Today is a unique opportunity for stakeholders at all levels, public and private, to share ideas and opportunities, create innovative new partnerships, and work together towards turning the concepts and discussions into tangible actions. I would like to stress on the objectives and aims of this workshop, which will be to explore opportunities for cooperation between Europe and Africa in water research, development, and innovation, to support the development of international cooperation strategies of water RDI initiatives through the collection of relevant information like water RDI themes, collaboration modalities, cooperation barriers, and finally to exchange ideas and best practices on alignment and social innovation. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohamed. Thanks a lot for your kind words, and now we're going to get into the introduction, and so our workshop is aiming also at exploring opportunities for enabling international networking, and so let me just briefly explain to you the Water JPI. So this, of course, is joined with the PRIMA and the Academy of Science and in Egypt. The Water JPI Global Partnership is composed actually of 28 members, and you can see here on the slide that our 28 members are composed of 20 voting members, 5 associated partners, and 3 observers. And actually, in this consortium, we associate South Africa and as a full member Tunisia as an associated partner, and Egypt and Morocco, who are partners in our joint activities. And here on this slide, you can see the international cooperation in joint calls. So we've launched joint calls with different countries from Israel, South Africa, Canada, Egypt, Taiwan, Tunisia, Turkey, Brazil. Since 2015, we are collaborating with Europe and beyond Europe. And on the next slide, we can see the other activities that we're doing. So the activities that we are doing with the Water JPI are from the strategic research and innovation agenda to calls, like I told you, but also to knowledge transfer and dissemination, data observatory and infrastructures, capacity building, and of course we have a big pillar of international cooperation and stakeholders involvement and engagement, and all that come back to our strategic research and innovation agenda to share a common vision amongst our 28 partners in the consortium. Let me just focus on one tool in particular, which is the Knowledge Hub, which is something we would be very keen to share with you in sub-Saharan Africa and the whole continent. So it's for knowledge sharing, transfer and dissemination, and a network of selected researchers within a defined scientific area and involved in research and innovation projects that have been funded by the Water JPI or that have been in the same field at the national level. So why are we doing that? For what? For knowledge management, collecting and sharing, for knowledge usability, knowledge synthesis, knowledge sharing to extended domains, knowledge dissemination and communication, and also to enhance critical mass. And we want to reach end users and stakeholders, and of course, European policymakers and the entire scientific community. And with the Knowledge Hub, on the next slide, you can see some of our achievements. We wrote a stakeholder brief. We also wrote a position paper, a policy brief to inform, but also we had data and fact sheets for showing the stakeholders and the civil society how much it's important to spread this contaminant of emerging concern. And this Knowledge Hub on contaminant of emerging concern was really a success in terms of stakeholder briefs and policy brief. And on the next slide, another type of cooperation, which is the thematic annual programming action. And it's for a common research priority. And here we work towards the ecosystem services. We were a cluster of research and innovation projects. We elaborated a common call text, and after a few months of preparation, we had a 2-year period of networking that were funded by the Water JPI and the members. And so we did some transnational cooperation. We exchanged best practices. We assessed and optimizing the value of ecosystem services, enhanced the critical mass of research and technology excellence. And of course, we did knowledge dissemination and communication. We generated knowledge for European policymakers, and you can see here that we wrote a position paper and also a policy brief to inform public institutions, farmers, consumers, and extension services, and of course, the policymakers. So now I would like to introduce Prima. It's a great honor to share this workshop and to have elaborated this workshop with the Partnership for Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean area. So Prima is an initiative addressing 4 thematic pillars: water management, farming systems, agri-food systems, and the welfare nexus, water, energy, food, ecosystem, environment nexus. It promotes alignment and national research programs, and it's based on a common 10-year strategic research and innovation agenda from 2018 to 2028 to tackle societal and environmental challenges through research and innovation. You can see that there are 19 participating states, 22 national funding agencies are involved, and it's about 129 international research and innovation projects that have been funded so far. On the next slide, you can see one of the projects in water management, the actions, PRIMA actions, and the research and innovation collaboration that was centered around the 4 main water-related topics: water resources availability and quality within catchments and aquifers, sustainable integrated water management, irrigation technologies and practices, and the use of alternative water resources. So Euromed Consortia involved public and private organizations, Europe, of course, the Mediterranean partnership countries, and of course the H2020 associated country. It's 31 projects that have been funded for 41 million euros and with 254 partners, which is a great success for PRIMA. Another example is on water management and rice-based agro-ecosystems. And again, you can see that it gathered a lot of different countries. And the general objective was to explore the sustainability of innovative irrigation solutions in the rice production sector. And it's ongoing up to 2023. It's 2.4 million euros. And it's a consortium of 11 partners, including Italy, Egypt, Spain, Israel, Portugal, and Turkey. And they have 13 pilot farms and 7 stakeholders panels with 25-something stakeholders. And on the last slide, to introduce PRIMA, another example of project to inform and catalyze the adoption of robust transformational adaptation strategies to water scarcity under climate change that contribute to the IWRM objectives of social equity, economic efficiency, and environmental sustainability. This integrated water resources management, and this is about also governance, and it's still an ongoing project, of course, and it will finish in 2025. So that is about it for the PRIMA achievements that are still to be foreseen, since it's still up to 2028. And on the next slide, just to finish my brief introduction, just to invite you the next month in November 17th in Germany to the Water JPI conference, which will be hybrid because in Europe we cannot very much travel from our agency. So you can definitely follow our Water JPI conference from research into practice, pollutants, pathogens, and antimicrobial resistances in the water cycle. And there will be also a lot of different topics discussed on water pollutant and, of course, antimicrobial resistance. Please come to this conference and register now. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I would like to introduce Dan du Toit, who's the Deputy Director General of South African Department of Science and Innovation. Dan has been a diplomat at first, and he's He's now he lived for a long time in Brussels, where he represented science and innovation of South Africa. And Dan du Toit is definitely a very important actor in South Africa and in Africa in general. And he's now the Deputy Director General of Bilateral Cooperation and in charge of bilateral cooperation and multilateral cooperation also. Dan, the floor is yours.
Dan, you are muted. Dan, you are muted. Dan, you are muted.
Dan موجود already؟ موجود يعني اوكي.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, I can see Veronique.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Despite 18 months of experience, these things still happen. So well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Veronique, for that introduction. And my appreciation to the JPI as well as to Prima for inviting me to speak at this morning's event. Certainly strengthening cooperation in science and innovation between Africa and Europe, specifically in a sector as crucial as water, is of great strategic significance for South Africa. And I'm therefore honored that you have invited me to share some reflections and some perspectives on how the JPI can embark on this very important mission to promote enhanced collaboration between Africa and Europe in water research and innovation. It would be amiss for me also not to really just acknowledge and greet Professor Alshinawi, who is an excellent friend of South Africa and someone we work together very closely in different African platforms, as well as within the context of the very important bilateral collaboration between South Africa and Egypt. So what I will do this morning is just trying to really set the scene for the important panel discussions which will follow. And again, I must congratulate the JPI and Prima for assembling a really impressive list of African and European experts for the panel discussion, many of whom are old colleagues and friends who I also greet. So what I will do is just to take a step back and perhaps reflect broadly on Africa-European cooperation in science and innovation, and as what are the opportunities and what are the challenges as the JPI and Prima now embark on this role to promote collaboration, and then come with some suggestions which you may wish to or discuss later during your session, and conclude with some remarks about why I think that we all speak about science diplomacy these days, but really about why collaboration between Africa and Europe in the water sector is an excellent example of science diplomacy. Now just to start, I don't think I need to even repeat this message because it's really preaching to the converted, but I think everyone in this audience here, we're all convinced, and we devote our professional efforts to promoting international cooperation in science, because that is how science progresses. Knowledge progresses when we share experience, when we share expertise. These days, in the age of data science, when we collectively invest in research infrastructure, that is absolutely imperative. And the same applies also to the water sector. I think very crucially, why collaboration for Africa with a platform such as the JPI is important, because it also secondly enables the leveraging of additional investment, of co-investment opportunities. We all know We have to be very responsible with the investments we make from our taxpayers, from public finances, and the best return on investment you can have is if you co-invest with others to make sure that there is a greater investment. And I think then just lastly, the role science plays to reinforce global solidarity, international partnership in support for us in Africa, the African Union's Agenda 2063, or indeed at a multilateral level, responding to priorities such as the Sustainable Development Goals. For all these reasons, international cooperation in science is so important, and that is why we can only laud and congratulate PRIMA and the JPI for embarking on this effort to enhance collaboration between Africa and Europe. But then what would be the specific opportunities if now in October 2021 we would reflect which this initiative should seek to respond to? Now, I won't say much on this because this is self-evident, but clearly the problem statement, the business case, if you like, about why we should invest in water research and innovation cannot be more evident. We can just look around us. The ongoing challenges posed by climate change, by food security, the cause which water insecurity is creating as one of the causes for political insecurity. So water and secure, safe access to water is high on the political agenda. It's an integral part of the debate of the Sustainable Development Goals. It will be in the agenda in the coming weeks in Glasgow, where our nations will meet at the Convention of the Parties for the United Nations Framework Climate Change Convention. And that is an opportunity. That is an opportunity for everyone in this room, this virtual room, as we seek to promote collaboration, because we are working on a topic which is highly politically relevant. But secondly, the past 18 months has also taught us how important international cooperation in science is. Just as COVID-19 has shown that our world really doesn't know any borders, we have also learned that the response has to be an international one and a global one, which has meant that, again, our politicians, our leaders are more convinced than ever of the importance of international cooperation in science. And that's how we've, for example, seen also, and we should acknowledge that the very important investments the European Commission has made through special calls as part of Horizon Europe to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's political and public appreciation for the importance of international cooperation in science. But I think also importantly, not only the positive aspects, but also the shortcomings. If we find ourselves today in a situation where on my continent, on Africa, we are still lagging far behind the vaccination rates for COVID-19, which the Europe and most of the industrialized and developed world enjoys. It's also because that we have not been successful in past years with international cooperation in science, that more could have been done. And I think that is also the opportunity to learn from these challenges we have fought in COVID-19 to ensure that we do not repeat some of the mistakes as we embark on new collaboration efforts, that we ensure that those international cooperation programs truly puts us in a position to respond to challenges, specifically then in the water sector. And then also thirdly, there is a real opportunity for us to draw on past experience. I see my good friend Ninke Buisman and others are in the audience, who together with Professor Alshinawi and others, we have now worked for a very long time. It doesn't make us younger, more than a decade, on developing various programs and instruments for strengthening Africa-European cooperation. And I would say that's a mature and a diverse portfolio. I mean, I personally, as an anecdote, remember going to Cairo as long ago as 2008, when one of the predecessors of PRIMA, Mira, had organized a joint event with CASNet, the INCONET for Sub-Saharan Africa. And then we were talking about how do we design programs, including in the water sector, for Africa and Europe work together. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There is real experience of what worked and what didn't work on what we can draw on. And that is very timely because, as I'm sure Ninke will say, we are preparing for the next African-European Union Summit, on which certainly responding to the Sustainable Development Goals, responding to water, and enhanced science and innovation partnerships will be on the agenda. So again, in summary, for me, the opportunity really is one of high political relevance, of high strategic significance, and I think, therefore, it just emphasizes the justification for the JPI and Prima to embark on this initiative. But of course, with opportunities also becomes challenges, and I think we should be frank about that. And I would just leave this with you as thoughts for further discussions. It's easy to make policy announcement, to announce political intent. It is much more difficult to translate those intent in real concrete actions and programs. And again, we've seen this, and we can be very frank and honest with each other and look at the outcomes of various Africa-EU summits over the years. Yes, much has been achieved. We should by no means not belittle that or acknowledge that, but much more can be done. And I think one of the challenges we face is that often we are stuck in what I refer to as the science bubble, where we in a sense speak to each other as science funders, as scientists, as all those stakeholders in the scientific community. And we are less successful in making the connection and the real collaborative connection with others, with sectors, with industry, with civil society, with other line ministries. I work for the science ministry. I cannot have this discussion if my colleagues of the water ministry is not involved. So that is something I think we really need to focus is how can we have integration and collaboration across different policy domains. I think another challenge, which is real and we should speak about, it's very similar, is that often coordination is not what it should be, and it leads to duplication. There are often initiatives which seek to achieve the same objective, and those involved suffer from what I would like to call the not invented here syndrome. Of course, we always think we know best, and what we want to do is best, but the reality is that resources are limited, and not only funding, also time. Including for policymakers, for research managers to invest. And I think the water JPI and Prima really offers that opportunity for us to bring different initiatives together so that we can achieve that better coordination and avoid duplication. And then just lastly on the challenges, and this is a critical point, one we can talk about a lot, but it's very real within the context of Africa-European cooperation. There are times when our collaboration suffers from a lack of real joint ownership and co-ownership. And again, I should emphasize there's a lot of good work happening within the framework of the Africa-European Union high-level policy dialogue on science, technology, and innovation. But we still sometimes see that the research agendas are not aligned. And we do not necessarily are always as sensitive as we should be to the asymmetry between the science and innovation systems in Africa and Europe. We are not the same. The European Union and the African Union are not exactly the same. Their instruments, their mandates differ. I'm sure I do not need to repeat this message in this room, but we sometimes also find there's not necessarily sufficient appreciation of the diversity in Africa. We're 55 nation states with national science programs. So bearing this in mind and really building a true joint partnership, which is truly jointly owned by Africa and Europe, I think is absolutely essential if we are going to achieve the objectives we want to. And I'm sure that's also the conviction of Prima and the JPI for this event. So then, having looked at the challenges and the opportunities, what would be a recommended response? First of all, to very decisively look at the linkages between the different agendas, the science agenda, the development agenda, the economic, the political agendas, so that we can work together, leverage, it's again bureaucratic language, the synergies between them, and also not shrink away from the sometimes difficult discussions that in science and innovation, it's not only about collaboration, it's also often about competition. And we should, for all of our governments, one of the reasons we invest in science collaboration is, for example, for economic objectives, such as market access. And those are honest discussions to be had, and I think built in as part of the partnership. I think it's important to be ambitious, and I have absolutely no doubt the JPI and Prima are ambitious, but it's important to reconcile that ambition with pragmatism and focus on impact and securing the low-hanging fruits. And in this regard, we should not be scared to fail. And I would really encourage all involved in this initiative, the JPI and its partners and Prima, not to be scared to fail. Experiment. I mean, these are the type of initiatives where we learn by doing. Let's design new cooperation instruments, new cooperation programs. And even if they don't deliver all the results we would want them to, we would have learned. And that would put us in a better position for the future. And it's much better to learn by doing than not to do anything at all. And I think just lastly speaking, in this regard, let us go beyond the bureaucratic talk, the policy talk, and just really make sure that our collaboration embrace truly and put into practice the principle of open science. And open science is not only open access to research results, it's not only open data, it is a science which is open to society and truly inclusive in our partnership. So let's work. And one of the challenges of the Africa-European cooperation at times has been, it's certainly changed, but the fact that we many know of each other, that it can often, sometimes at times, be a closed club involving the usual suspects. So I think one should concertedly work at broadening the range of partners and participants involved from different disciplines. So just to conclude, and again, I'm giving my age away by showing you a slide of the 7 framework program, which was a predecessor of Horizon, well, it was a predecessor to Horizon 2020, not even to Horizon Europe. And when I was thinking about what my practical recommendations would be to conclude, I remember that FP7 was constructed on 4 pillars: cooperation, ideas, people, and capacities, which sometimes shows that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because that's what I really would also recommend the JPI and PRIMA to focus in building this new Africa-European cooperation. We need to have concrete collaboration, real scientific collaboration addressing these global challenges with African and European partners involved as an equal level. And incidentally, I would like to specifically greet Mr. Octavi Quintana in the room, who I've known for many years in Brussels and has been a champion for many of these initiatives. We should, of course, focus on excellence. Science thrives with excellence. Excellence cannot be compromised upon. It's about investment in people. Our collaboration should be equipping training the next generation of African and European researchers, and through mobility, because we owe it to ourselves to invest in a next generation of African and European researchers who have privileged relations and work together. And then, of course, this all must be supported by capacities, most notably infrastructure. But so if FP7 created a good framework, I think we can also look, as we move to Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020, to the broadening of this focus. Now we bring in the competitiveness, we bring in the economic angle, the strong focus on innovation, and very much widening the participation, widening the partnership, so that also, I think through this initiative, the Water JPI and the PRIMA can play a role to strengthening Africa-European Union cooperation. Just to conclude, again, one of the bureaucratic talks we often used to quote these days is about science diplomacy, but as I've said in my introduction, I think what we're talking about here today, but more importantly, what the JPI and PRIMA wants to achieve is really putting science diplomacy in practice. It's making it real, because there are few more pressing global challenges than water security, which requires a scientific response. But we also need diplomacy to help us to design and to shape the international cooperation for science to come to its potential. And then I think most importantly, this is also where science becomes an instrument for diplomacy, because as we are doing here together, we bring us together from different continents, from different countries, different cultures, but it brings us through that unique power which science has, and that is to unite in our common humanity and the challenges we seek to address. So thank you very much again, Veronique and Professor Alshinawi, which I greet. I very much hope to see you in Cairo very soon. And I wish you very fruitful and rich discussions for the rest of the day, which I will follow with interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thanks a lot. So now we can go with Salma. Salma, Dr. Salma Essaoui, are you taking the floor? So Salma is going to moderate the first panel discussion on alignment and RDI programs between Africa and EU. And it's a great honor to have Salma moderating this session from the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology of Egypt. Thank you, Salma. Salma, we cannot hear you online.
Okay. Tell me when it's okay.
Yes, yeah, we can hear you. Wonderful,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So I was just saying that I work for the Academy of Scientific Research as the Deputy Director, Deputy Director, Research and Innovation Management Department. So actually, I'm honored to be the moderator for this session with this, with the panelists of, actually they are all masterminds and they have a vast experience.
International initiatives. We are funding quite a lot of projects on water and co-funding between African partners and EU partners, like in NARIMNet, EranNEDMED, LIPAGRI, FOSC, PRIMA with one call each year, section 1, and one call, section 2 each year. JPI Water with Waterworks 2015, 17, UNSDG call. Aquatic contaminants, biodiverse store. It means that each time we are funding roughly more than 10 projects. It means now the priority is to capitalize and valorize. We have funded more than 100 projects together in this international cooperation between Africa and EU. It means that what Dan called the science bubble, but perhaps the science bubble is not enough strong. We need to exchange knowledge on new innovative technologies between the different experts of the different countries. We need to increase mobility and training and build some knowledge exchange platform to diffuse the innovations between the scientists, avoid duplications, to diffuse the innovation to the industry, to the citizen, and to the consumers. This means in Europe, we are building missions, actually. It's a little bit like this, you see. Missions, it's to make science available for the citizens. And I think that it's a time after a long period of a decade, I said, of co-funded, where we need to increase and capitalize to maximize the outcomes of our projects that we have co-funded. Salma,
Okay.
I saw that you want also to discuss about applicable model within African Union and European Union.
Yes, sure. But would I come to that question later? Because while we are designing this workshop together with the Water JPI, PRIMA, and Academy of Scientific Research, we thought that we want to valorize of results. So we want ourselves to put some good examples and successful stories. So please introduce Mr. Mohamed Al-Sadiq, Engineer Mohamed Al-Sadiq, to give us a brief summary on FEMAC projects, which is funded by PRIMA, Section 1, and how, in your experience, that could be replicated in a wider region such as EU Africa. Engineer Mohamed, please.
Thank you, Ms. Salma, and thank you for the invitation. Indeed, if you allow me to just highlight on the FEMAC project funded by PRIMA. FEMAC actually stands for Participatory Hub for Effective Mapping, Acceleration, and Capitalization, and it's a set of tools for gathering and showcasing the impact of EU MBC Nexus best practices and projects related to PRIMA SRIA, and mainly in the water, energy, and food nexus. FEMAC aims actually to develop and disseminate an interactive platform that will gather and share best practices focused on the strategic research and innovation agenda of the PRIMA, involving a wide range of stakeholders from the farming systems, water management, and agri-food sectors. The platform and the project will help stakeholders to become aware of what already has been developed and implemented in the region, avoiding duplication and using consolidating existing knowledge to create new value. Also, FEMAC will strongly encourage successful and sustainable public-private partnership Actually, the platform itself, the FEMAC project, managed to have like together and do some sort of deep analysis for comprehensive project mapping exercise. And we are developing like about 40 best practice catalog of 40 initiatives in the region for like multiplying methodology and maximizing the impact of these success stories. The FEMAC feature was so-called iHub, and the iHub platform actually is serving as a one-stop shop for an effective knowledge transfer and the Nexus domain. The idea of FEMAC platform, it serves as a repository of all projects and efforts in the region, and actually it serves as a virtual marketplace as well to help in the link between the academia and the industry and investors. And the FEMAC also feature a very unique feature, which is called smart benchmarking or e-benchmarking. It's based on the BPAP methodology, where the system can predict the project's commercialization readiness based on a questionnaire of certain inputs metrics that actually serve as to also provide what's so-called combined econometrics for the projects, and gave a rating and ranking for the projects. That's briefly the FEMAC projects and actually the iHub platform that is part of the project.
Okay, thank you so much for this brief introduction about the project. We'll move to another success story with my colleague actually and my friend, Mr. Gustavo Perezzi, the coordinator for Project Next Labs. So would you give us a brief introduction as well on Next Lab project and how this relatively new approach is the living lab method could be beneficial to EU-Africa collaboration?
Okay, good afternoon, Salma. Thanks for giving us the chance of being here. Thanks for the organizers of this session to let us share with you some of our thoughts. Well, in fact, some of our colleagues already mentioned the opportunities given by the hubs, and we may support that such approach it could be the relevant one for the beneficial Europe-Africa cooperation. As already mentioned, some colleagues, is not to reinvent the wheel, is to take profit of the best practices that could be replicated somewhere else. So at the end, what we have observed within this project is that although the concept of the living lab is already well known in Europe and developed and implemented in the Mediterranean region, the number of living labs, I would say, is not scarce. I mean, I would say it's inexisting. So if we consider that engaging all the stakeholders of specific problems, we could have a better engagement of all those interested, we could at the end reach a real product market fit between the solutions and the needs of the end users. So in that case, the Next Labs is a project of 11 partners from 7 countries in the Mediterranean with, I would say, 30 months of duration, that we propose a wider approach. We are trying to engage not only the water stakeholders, we are engaging the web nexus stakeholders, value chains, to try to solve the future web challenge in the region. But following a pentahelix approach. So the pentahelix approach contextualizes the triple and quadruple helix, and we added the helix of environment and the territorial context. So we try to exploit the multicultural creativity and the unique capacity of the Euro-Mediterranean population to think out of the box and offers invaluable solutions. So we can transform that living lab approach into something that can be capitalized due to the fact that we are involving all the relevant stakeholders that will work best to use these users' needs. At the end, what we consider is that from this point of view of implementing different living labs, replicating, engaging all the stakeholders, these are the ideal places for the testing beds for the co-creation, the co-design, between the innovation seekers and the innovation solvers and the innovation users, and we can find solutions for the agri-food, for the energy demand. So at the end is the place to attract the talent, to support this co-creation, to move forward, to upscale, to transfer innovation, to set up transnational experiment grounds while we are connecting the pockets of innovation in the Euro-Mediterranean basin. I mean, for example, to capitalize those best practices identified by our FIMAC colleagues. So at the end, trying to be brief and try to summarize, so we are trying to accelerate the inclusive innovation process, facilitate the exchange and the access to new external generated research, development, innovation technologies to implement solutions for the Nexus challenges. We try to intensify the industry academy interlinkages to strengthen the clustering, the networking, provide technical support to improve products and services, let the people have the chance to test, to innovate, to incubate their ideas through different vouchers, try to provide some suggestions for future policy recommendations on the replication of the living labs, capitalize at the end opportunities provided by other stakeholders working on Web Nexus. So in figures, we have we can offer 4 acceleration grants, 16 testing vouchers, 42 innovation vouchers, and incubation vouchers for different periods of time. We will be developing 3 innovation weeks to engage all the cluster and stakeholders from the Web Nexus. We will be including workshops, brokerage events, entrepreneurs corners, and summer schools or ideas generation programs for entrepreneurs linked to Innovation Prize, with the final target of creating 2 cross-border Nexus Open Drive and Living Labs. This is the way that we name them. One addressing the water, energy, smart grids for irrigation purposes, and the other to address the virtual water energy trade within the food import-export value chain. So this, in summary, is what we can share with you all right now.
Thank you, Gustavo, so much for this brief introduction about the project and the findings so far. So I'm going to go actually to Ms. Makhlouding. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. I've kept searching for it. So how you think, when I was like, read your title, Head of International and Stakeholder Engagement, of course, it's stakeholder engagement is the essential part of any dialogue. So how you think the best approach to bring stakeholders together from both continents in light of participation, engagement of stakeholders, in identification of research and innovation issues, implementation of solutions. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Salma. And thank you for inviting the Water Research Commission to be part of this discussion. I think before I get into how can we promote stakeholder engagement, just maybe to start by saying that valorization is all about creating the value, the impact that we need when we do this research and innovative solution projects. And it starts really with where we are aware of what agendas exist in the African continent and the EU. I think Dan and other colleagues touched on this one. So we need to firstly, as program owners, as funding organizations, to be aware of the agendas in both continents, so that we are then able to start the engagement within ourselves as program owners to say, where is the synergies within our respective agendas? What can we do together to create the value that we need out of all these projects and programs that we are funding, and enhance the impact where it's intended to impact. And therefore, it is very important then for the program owners to first engage within themselves to identify synergies and agree on possible areas where they can work together. And another important element is really making sure that the program owners do really support the work that is relevant, and it will really help to address the issues at a local level. So it is very important for that. And for us to be able to do that, then we need to have engagement with different stakeholders. For example, if you have a water project that you need to implement in a specific community. There will need to be community engagement with regards to such a project, where you call the communities together to explain what the project is, to check if indeed that project is addressing whatever the local needs and issues are before you even start implementing the project. Other ways of engagement with stakeholders, which COVID helped us a lot with, is before the COVID, most of the institutions, the communities were not having access to Wi-Fi and data to be able to connect to virtual activities, but we know now that it's a normal. We are now participating. I'm from South Africa, based in South Africa right now, but participating in this event. So for us, I think it is an opportunity as program owners, as communities, to be able to participate from wherever you are. You don't need to now be traveling for you to be able to contribute to engagements and discussions. So with that, then, for example, the Knowledge Hub model that Veronique spoke about, that could be one of the stakeholder engagement that we use to bring together experts or communities of practice from both Africa and Europe through a Knowledge Hub, where we can identify a specific topic of common interest, which this group will be talking about. Focus groups is one way of engaging with different stakeholders, bilateral meetings and technical workshops, for example. I mean, Ninke mentioned that the World Water Forum that is happening in Dakar next year. So again, for example, in the water sector, there is lots of annual international event that you are aware of. Those are very good platforms where you can engage with stakeholders from different areas. You have policymakers in those, you have academia, you have NGOs, you have communities and so forth. So we could use this international recognized events where we bring together respective African and European experts to come and then work together or engage in specific topics. And for example, I could mention the World Water Forum that Ninke has mentioned, which is happening on the 22nd to 27th of March in Dakar, Senegal. There is, for example, the Stockholm World Water Week, which is a well-known conference. The Dubai Expo, for example, which is now on, and actually the Water Week will be in March next year. So those are the kind of platforms that we could use to engage with both the African and the European and many other strategic partners that could be key to this EU-Africa partnership. I think another element that I think is underutilized and could be very effective is the social media platforms. So we could create social media groups where we provide specific communities of practice with a space and a platform where they can engage on a daily basis. We could establish interactive platforms on website. I mean, we have Water JPI, we have many other programs that we run with Africa and EU. So we can introduce these interactive platforms where stakeholders could go in at any point, discuss a specific topic, but we leave it open so that people can also still engage interactively, even post an event, for example. So I believe that with now COVID has given us, most of us, access to be able to participate virtually, we need to really make use of these virtual platforms that are available to bring together people without the need to travel and wasting a lot of time in the air.
Yes.
So social media, digital platforms to promote engagement on an ongoing basis, and also during specific events. It could be webinars, it could be workshops or technical sessions. And I'll just conclude by talking about how we could then do the stakeholder engagement when we're looking at how we facilitate uptake of solutions that are coming from the research and innovation that we do in Africa and Europe. I think firstly, when we do project at community level, it is important to engage with the communities even before you start with a project, so that you build buy-in and ownership from those communities that you're working with. But when you're looking at, for example, rolling out a water innovation, just as an example, you would then need several engagements with the local government authorities, with the communities where the solution is going to be rolled out, with the community leaders. So these are all stakeholder engagements that one would need to look at if you want to facilitate uptake of research and innovative solutions. NGOs, for example, if you're working in a community, you need to have an NGO partner, and the same knowledge and innovation providers, because they have to be part of this engagement with the overall communities and the intended recipient of the knowledge and the innovations. And another important element is to ensure that as we do this project, we empower the communities that we're working with. We involve them from beginning to end, as I've said. And lastly, the importance of sustainability. building sustainability of post-project funding, because you do a specific project, it is very having a high impact, but when you leave, you need to also plan about post-project sustainability to ensure that whatever have been put in place through the Africa EU or whatever kind of partnership doesn't go to waste. So those require lots of engagements with the communities, with the solution providers, the knowledge providers, the local communities. And as I've said, we have lots of options, both physical, even hybrid versions, where we could, for example, have two main physical sites where Europeans are gathered in Europe, Africans in one space in Africa, and the rest can come in as in a hybrid kind of model. So we do have those platforms where we can do physical, hybrid, and also virtual, and we must take advantage of those because they really work. Let me stop there, Salma, so that I give other colleagues a chance to also contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohamed, for this intervention. But would you please share with us these links that you mentioned to start at least from where others have been already doing the work. So we want to not to reinvent the wheel like they're saying. So please share with us these links. And of course, we're gonna include them in the remarks of this session. So going back to Monsieur Maurice Serral, would you please describe an applicable model that could be successful to be replicated within African Union and European Union context? Maurice? Mr. Maurice Serral.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
mute, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks a lot for the question. And I think that there is a convergence between the different authors who participate to this table. And Mamo Holding say at the end that we need to create communities of practice. And Veronique talk about knowledge hub, and Gustavo about co-creation in living labs, and Mamo Holding about also improvement with local communities and local authorities. And I wanted to say that it's very important now, as we have more than 100 projects funded. We need to have cluster of projects which are under development on the same issues. But whatever the funds are coming, they could come from regional funds, they can come from national funds, from EU funds, from EU and Africa, multilateral funds, but they must be focused on very precise topics, challenges such, for example, water reuse for agriculture, water reuse for underground water recharge, irrigation with low water consumption, treatment of emerging contaminants, the problem of antimicrobiotic resistance, how we can treat wastewater, how we can reuse them after. And this very precise, you see, it's not a knowledge hub on water management or UNSDG, you see, it's very precise issues, you see. To produce up-to-date technical recommendations with technical training sessions, why not summer school, to widespread good practice and solution. And of course, in agreement with, it could be open not only for scientists, but also to local authorities, to have a wide, and to the consumers, to have a wide acceptance, consumers represented by NGOs, but to have a good acceptance of the innovations. But I think it's time now to be very focused and try to put all the new results that we have produced together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. I will take the opportunity to ask, if you allow me, Veronique, to ask Dr. Alshinawi on one important question, picking on all what has been said, what are the actionable steps to be taken for long-term partnership within research and innovation in the water domain?
Thank you so much, Salma. I hope that you can hear me.
Open the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's better. Thank you. This is a very tough question, Salma, because talking about the actions that could be taken, we have to look at the national and the regional level. Talking about the national level, all of us sitting together, we have to start looking at our national regulations and laws and try to adapt these laws according to the changes that's happening in the region. So for instance, talking about Egypt, after we had the scientific incentive law and changing some of the regulations within our system and within our funding agencies, now we are able to fund more innovative actions. We are not only limited to governmental bodies. So this was due to being engaged in many initiatives like PRIMA, like other initiatives. So this is one of the things that we, in long term, we have to work on. Second thing is how to keep all of these actions sustainable. Because some of the work that we are doing is related to a project, related to a fund, and then once the fund is gone, we lose the momentum and we lose what we have done. So embedding this in our system, in our universities, in our research, this is very important to ensure the sustainability of these actions. Is very important. I would like to stress on what Dan had said, that we had a lot of challenges that we have to face. Sometimes we are not aware about the public engagement. The public has to feel what we are doing. We as scientists, professors, policymakers, sometimes we are talking in a way and the public does not understand what we are talking about. The word open science is very important, not only for scientists and researchers, but for the whole population. The impact of what we are doing has to be shown. I have to talk about also rely on what our friend from Africa was saying about relying on the ways how to coordinate together and talk together and listen to each other. It's not only one-way direction. It has to be both directions so that these actions and these plans are really, we have to see their impact and we have to be very malleable. We're not, according to the changes, there is a lot of change that's happening, especially in the climate change and the water resources and the challenges that we are facing. So we have to be a step ahead before any challenge that we face. And before I close, please let me say a very good to see my very dear friend from South Africa, Dan, and of course Maurice and many those who are joining us online. And I hope that we will be joined very soon together in Cairo in person. Thank you, Salma. Back to you.
Thank you. So my final question is to all the panelists. Whoever wants to participate, please let me know. What could be the main challenge that is facing or could face EU-African research and innovation collaboration? So this is an open question for anyone who wants to pick up on this for the panelists or even in the floor. What could be the main challenge that is facing or could face EU-African research and innovation collaboration? Anyone raised his hand from the Zoom? Okay, nothing. Okay, so we'll leave this. We have already mentioned a lot of challenges by Mr. Maurice Heral, and I hope that as a final remark will be given by Mr. Alshinawi at the end of the both sessions, highlighting all what we have been saying through this panel. So let me thank you so much for being here today, for giving this so much insights to our panel, and I really thank you, and thank you, Mr. Alshinawi, for the pop-up question. Thank you so much for that. The floor is yours, Veronique. Thank you.
Salma, we have some raised hands on our end.
Okay, if somebody wants to participate.
Juliette, maybe you want to
Juliet? Okay, Juliet? Me? Marco? Okay. Please unmute yourself and speak. You can unmute yourself and speak, the one who was raising their hands.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes.
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
please.
Yes, I think from my
With
side, Mahmoud Trading from the Water Research
We'll
Commission.
hear one by one. Mama Holding first? Mama Khlouding,
Yes.
sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Salma. I think I agree with Maurice has said, but what I just wanted to add, which is one important element when you talk about facilitating uptake of knowledge and solution, is that we do not have existing, if I may call them, testbed networks in Africa and EU. So there may be solutions that have been developed through the partnership with Africa and EU that are relevant to the African needs, for example, but we do not have, for example, a list of municipalities or water services institutions that could be willing to uptake those solution tests, demonstrate them in their own environment and ensure that it's applicable and be able to use it. So for me, we need to also establish testbed networks where we can easily and efficiently facilitate uptake of technological solutions that are developed through Africa EU projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mama Khlouding. Mr. Turkey, please.
Yeah, to answer your question is what are the difficulties on the investment? We do have a session tomorrow at 2:30 Cairo time that will issue or discuss this main issue. From my experience, the really main challenge of the investment, whether in Africa or in any of this part of the world, is the difficulties of corruption. There is a great amount of corruption. There is a lack of law, and there is a lack of the guarantee of the investment. So for more of the discussion, I will welcome everybody tomorrow at 2:30 that we will have a session. We'll discuss these issues. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turkey. Thank you for your intervention. I think anybody else for Nick is raising their hands, or we can close the session. Okay, I think no answer is okay. So thank you so much again.
Yeah, actually, there was also a remark from Ute. Ute, maybe you want to speak up your remark for Nienke. I'm not sure she saw your chat, your remark in the chat.
Sure. Thanks very much, Veronique. I pointed to some existing resources that we produced during the Afro-Alliance project. Of course, I don't want to preempt the next session where perhaps you can learn a little bit more about Afro-Alliance.
Yuta,
yes.
A little bit slower.
Sure.
Okay.
I had pointed to some existing resources that resulted out of the cooperation of 16 African and EU partners that worked under the umbrella of the Afro-Alliance project, where specifically we provided advice that could be helpful for the joint research agenda. And we also captured in an academic paper what are existing gaps in the knowledge base as African stakeholders face the impacts of climate change and water resources. So I think perhaps those two resources that jointly were produced by the partners could be helpful as steps are taken towards a joint research agenda.
Okay. So final thanks to close this session. Thank you so much, Veronique, and everybody to give me this chance to moderate this very interesting session. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours, Veronique. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I think we're going to have a break now.